Welcome on to the 11th annual mock-off season, 10th including Kevin Pelton of ESPN, joined now by Danny Leroux, Dan Feldman, and the aforementioned Mr. Pelton. How y'all doing here?
Good. Mostly still just
Doing well, thanks for
wondering
having us.
what we ever did without KP besides talk over each other just a little bit less.
Well, KP, we have to do this earlier and earlier every year with the trade market, and also with the fact that guys can re-sign with their teams after the NBA Finals. We thought this might be the most likely day after the NBA Finals. That is not the case. We have only our 9th Game 7 of the NBA Finals since the merger. And since we have here, you got any quick thoughts on that game?
I mean, I feel like I'm in the same position as everyone else where I'm still kind of processing what happened yesterday. Like, the possibility of the Pacers winning, particularly if Tyrese Halliburton looked as full strength as he did in that game, is not shocking. The Pacers winning in the fashion as they did, and that they did, and the Thunder looking as discombobulated as they did in that game. I mean, that it is tough to understand. Dan's research on the teams winning Game 6 and Game 7 in the finals is really interesting, but obviously we've only seen one of those in this current format, which is where the host of Game 6 does not host Game 7. That was Cleveland and Golden State, and yeah, I mean, I think this would certainly be a much bigger upset than that. It's one thing to, even if you have a 3-1 lead, going up against a team with Kyrie and LeBron, and Indiana just deserves so much credit for the way that they continue to outpace our expectations at every turn.
No, it's crazy. And the one thing I wish I'd said on the show last night was the history of Game 7s of the NBA Finals and the history of this Pacers team would both indicate that we're gonna have a close game. I don't think there has been anywhere close to a blowout in a Game 7 of the NBA Finals in my lifetime that I can recall. So, and it's going to be tight. It's going to be grappling. I mean, this has been like the ultimate series like that anyway. I feel so. If the Thunder, you think it's going to be like Game 7 against Denver, history would indicate that that's not necessarily the case. So I think it's going to be an awesome game.
It'll be interesting to see how the game is officiated, assuming Scott Foster ends up calling the game as he did in Game 4, and whether that slows things down, which I think at this point would probably work to Oklahoma City's benefit. I mean, Indiana that was the thing that jumped off the screen last night, is just how much faster Indiana looked, and that they made the Thunder look like the Thunder have made teams look throughout the playoffs. That was what was shocking.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the Thunder just got to play better, play harder. Like, they got smoked in every aspect. But let's get into now this offseason. And let's begin. You guys can roll through your teams. If this is your first time listening to it, I will be the player agent trying to get my guys some deals. Lots of cap space out there this year. Looking forward to really raking it in. Give me my 3% here. And I'm going to be a rich man after this. And you guys are the teams. We're going to do a lot more trades, actually. I think we'll see whether they actually come to fruition or not. But KP, why don't you start us off with one of your teams, and you all can go through Dan and then Danny.
Well, speaking of cap space, the Brooklyn Nets, they have all of it. We're looking at $64 million to start free agency, including the cap hold for Cam Thomas, and we're picking up options on Tyrese Martin and Jalen Wilson while declining Drew Timme's and not issuing a qualifying offer to Zaire Williams. And our goal is obviously to add impact draft picks and young talent on value contracts using that cap space, whether it's in trade or free agency.
Hey, Pistons here. We could open about $17 million in cap space, or we could go with using our bird rights and using the non-taxpayer MLE. Obviously, we open the cap space, we'd have the room exception. So it just kind of depends on costs. Obviously, we'd like to re-sign Malik Beasley. That's our highest priority. Probably re-sign Tim Hardaway Jr. also. And we'd love to re-sign Dennis Schroeder, but with Jaden Ivey getting healthy coming back, Schroeder is the lower priority of the three.
Boston Celtics here. We are still the reigning NBA champions, but we are looking to shed salary while ideally staying competitive for the 26-27 season. And we will listen to offers for Drew Holiday, Jaylen Brown, Kristaps Porzingis, Derek White, Sam Hauser, but bring real offers early because we're going to have to make decisions fast here.
The Charlotte Hornets have the non-taxpayer mid-level exception available, looking to get some good value there, maybe beef up our wing rotation.
The Atlanta Hawks need to determine their future with Trae Young. Does he match with our 4 younger starters, our plan there? He's eligible for contract extension. I'm not sure that fits in the purview of this exercise, but one way or another, we got to figure out what to do with Trae. And then we'd like to upgrade our defense, especially if we're keeping him.
The Phoenix Suns are looking to trade Kevin Durant. We're actually telling him this time, looking for though as much as we gave up to get him, especially if those players have Michigan connections. And ideally, we'd like to get under the second name.
Michigan State connections.
Either the state of Michigan or Michigan State.
The Denver Nuggets, if the Thunder do win Game 7 and go on to win the championship, we're going to tell everyone that we came as close as anyone to knocking them out of the playoffs and winning the title for the second time in 3 years. We're going to hang that alternate history banner, and we have the tax MLA, but also going to kick the tires on some Michael Porter Jr. trades that might help us out financially and potentially, fit better as well.
The Clippers are going to tell everybody they almost beat the team that almost beat the team that might win the championship. We're going to hang the alternate banner. We'd like to keep James Harden on a timeline that matches Kawhi. Kawhi's under contract for 2 more years, and we'd like to round out some depth. Well, being nimble financially, that seems to work out a little bit better for us.
The Chicago Bulls are looking to host another postseason game, singular, next year. We're $47 million roughly below the tax, not counting Josh Giddey, who we intend to retain, or the free agent. So we might have the non-taxpayer mid-level. We also might be talking to some teams about sign-in trades.
The Houston Rockets got our work started early with the Steven Adams extension. Next big priority is to get Fred VanVleet under a long-term contract that fits our cap sheet, and then maybe kick the tires on Kevin Durant if the price is right there.
The Lakers are going to keep LeBron James one way or another. Maybe we can get him to take another discount, maybe not. Obviously, the priority is getting a center or 2 or maybe even 3 into the pipeline. We need more depth overall. This will depend on LeBron's cost, but we are now willing to pay what it takes to go into the tax if necessary. Well into the tax if necessary.
The New Orleans Pelicans are looking to add talent around our current core. We'll listen on CJ McCollum, but we're not giving up a first to offload him. We're about $10 million below the tax. So we'd love to use the taxpayer mid-level on a player who's worth it if they're not willing to take the minimum.
The Memphis Grizzlies are looking to complete part 2 of our offseason retooling, having already traded Desmond Bane to the Orlando Magic for great value. Probably going to use cap space. I don't think this is outside the parameters of the podcast, but we're going to try to use cap space to renegotiate and extend Jaren Jackson Jr.'s contract, and then we'll have the room exception to help fill out our depth.
The Dallas Mavericks are going to just continue with our plan and draft Cooper Flagg. Again, just as we always planned. We'll also re-sign Kyrie Irving, and then depending on his cost, that's going to affect what we can do. We're very expensive, very limited options, but we're overstuffed with bigs especially. Probably players we like more than anybody else, but we're open to a trade a little bit more than you would think.
The Washington Wizards are open to business as a facilitator in trades, but we're not looking to take on money beyond the 25-26 season unless it's for a real premium. We're also willing to engage in sign-in trades for the big restricted free agents at a low asset cost, and we could use the non-taxpayer mid-level, some combination of those things.
Bucks here. We are not trading Giannis Antetokounmpo. Maybe someone pulls us over with a truly exceptional offer. Although if Desmond Bane gets 4 first-round picks, think about what it's going to take to get Giannis. As far as exceptions, we probably have the non-tax MLE, depending on what we do elsewhere, and we're going to try to win with Giannis, I guess. So we'll see.
Oh, you're going to try to win with me, that's for sure. Alex Surratt says here, there's going to be lots of winning with us.
The Thunder have a pretty full roster and maybe good vibes, or maybe a team really hungry to come back and avenge what happened. So we're probably just kind of staying the course.
The Toronto Raptors will continue to poke around Giannis Antetokounmpo and have conversations about other trade targets, but we're narrowly under the tax. So in terms of free agent signings, it'll probably be fairly quiet.
The New York Knicks have this close to the tax MLE to use in free agency, and we're hoping to add another contributor and then hire a coach who will actually play them.
The Portland Trailblazers have a pretty full roster. We'd like to continue our progress from last year and set up to have, I don't know, maybe $57 million of cap space in 2026 and continue to be on the ascent. We are willing to look into trading Jeremy Grant, Anthony Simons, Robert Williams, obviously DeAndre Ayton, but that might make more sense to do closer to the deadline. We don't feel urgency to move them.
The Golden State Warriors will ask about Giannis Antetokounmpo and add around our current core unless the right player, Giannis Antetokounmpo, is available at the right price. We also want to resolve the Jonathan Kuminga situation, likely by retaining him because that maintains more of our flexibility, but we will listen to sign and trade offers and see what kind of offer she gets.
The Sacramento Kings are hoping to find a reliable point guard using our non-tax MLE, or at least a portion of it. And then we're definitely going to listen on trades that would turn DeMar DeRozan into a stretch 3 or stretch 4.
The Cleveland Cavaliers are going to be aggressive looking to upgrade. This was not the playoffs we wanted, and we're willing to spend more if that's what it takes. But if we cannot make a difference-making move, then we will probably retreat a little bit, look to cut some dollars. We're about $17 million over the second apron right now. We would like to re-sign Ty Jerome. Obviously, that's cost dependent.
The Philadelphia 76ers are looking to retain restricted free agent Quentin Grimes, ideally at a reasonable price. We will listen on Paul George, but we're not going to give up a premium to offload him, and we're over the tax line, so probably won't have the tax pyramid level to offer.
The San Antonio Spurs feel like we're in the driver's seat here. We've got Victor Wembanyama, back healthy after the deep vein thrombosis, ready to start contending. We've got De'Aaron Fox. We've got the number 2 pick that we plan to use on Dylan Harper, and we want to add a significant starter, but at a reasonable price.
The Miami Heat will like to get Kevin Durant, or by time and probably somebody even better than Kevin Durant. Probably strike out on somebody even better than Kevin Durant. We'd also like to re-sign Davion Mitchell, but the price is going to be imperative there too.
The Orlando Magic already did our big move in getting Desmond Bane, so we are declining the team option of Mo Wagner, though we fully anticipate bringing him back, and we're looking to add a low-level playmaker for a low salary.
Utah Jazz are going to listen to offers on Lauri Markkanen. Now, if it was 4 first-round picks for Desmond Bane, who has never been an all-star, clearly we're expecting at least 4, probably 5 first-round picks or young talent equivalent for Lauri Markkanen.
The Minnesota Timberwolves are looking to upgrade. We'd love for Kevin Durant to want us, and then we could make a good offer. Otherwise, unless something comes loose, there is probably going to be trying to bring back Julius Randle, Naz Reid, and ideally Nickeil Alexander-Walker. But all 3 of them might be out of our price range.
The Indiana Pacers are, of course, waiting for our turn to win Game 7 and win the NBA championship, but we're intending either way to retain Miles Turner. We are about $18 million below the tax with nothing for him, and we are willing to go into the tax for this team.
Giannis Antetokounmpo here. I realize that very many teams might be interested in trading for me, but I've been talking to my new teammate Damian Lillard, and I really want to follow his playbook. I'm going to not ask out for a really long period of time, even though the situation is hopeless. And then I'm going to wait until I'm way too old to actually affect a championship, go to another team, and have a end game of my career that is a place I don't want to be at, and also ends up being irrelevant to the championship chase. Bucks, you guys good with that? Does that sound like a good plan?
Yeah, I feel like that's where we're at right now. But again, just maybe listening if someone really wants to bowl us over.
Well, I wouldn't recommend that, Bucks, because I want to be a Buck. I want to win. Maybe you should tell me first, Bucks, what your plan is for building around me with $54 million of torn Achilles on the sidelines this year.
That's a great question. Thanks for asking. We do have the 1 first-round pick available, plus some potential swaps that we can throw in there. So we are going to try to use Kyle Kuzma's, contract to upgrade that spot. And then, we do have some non-tax mid-level exception to, go out and add a contributor there. We do think we can play at the top of that market because of the combination of people wanting to come here and play with you and, just not a lot of teams having that kind of money available.
So Brook Lopez not going to be back then if you're going to use the non-taxpayer? That's probably right. They got to be the math on that.
It does seem like it. Now, the other thing we're thinking about, if we want to get in touch, we didn't mention this during the intro. If we want to get in touch with the agents for Pat Connaughton and Bobby Portis, we were wondering if maybe, you guys might be interested in declining your player options and then signing, 2-year deals that guarantee you a bit more money but have a slightly lower 2025-26 salaries so that we have more flexibility to spend.
Yeah, well, obviously Pat Connaughton and Bobby Portis should be at the very top of this program. I would never imply otherwise. But yeah, maybe, we'll have to figure out that they've got a lot of leverage there, which is rare in this economy. I think Bucks. My plan here is, I'd like to say that I might leave someday, and I'm going to put some pressure on you. Winning a championship is the most important thing, but I would never leave Milwaukee. I love Milwaukee. And so, I'm just going to, I'll make my decision after I see what you guys do this offseason.
We can live with that.
Cavs here. Bucks. We wanted to entice Giannis. Doesn't seem like that could happen, but we are willing to put Donovan Mitchell on the table for Giannis. And I don't know. Well, no. I think Donovan Mitchell is going to have more value than Giannis at this point, considering where you guys are. Giannis has more value to us, but we think Giannis is headed toward being in a tough situation. But I don't know. Maybe the Pelicans would want Donovan Mitchell, and you could get some of your picks back. There are things out there that we think could work.
Well, we're not looking to rebuild necessarily, but certainly if you're starting the conversation with, we think Donovan Mitchell has more value than Giannis Antetokounmpo, that's probably going to be a pretty short conversation.
Okay, I mean, obviously we'd have to include other players, but if that's like a DeAndre Hunter or a Max Strus,
I think we stand by what we said.
Okay.
Yeah, Giannis here. I just Bucks. I've got my ear to the ground. I wouldn't recommend you guys listening too hard, because I want you just focused entirely. What's that?
Don't believe what you're hearing.
Cavs here. Believe it all.
we hung up the phone very quickly when somebody else initiated a conversation. That wasn't us. We didn't proactively make a call.
Cavs here. We're leaking that the Bucks were asking us about Donovan Mitchell's value in relation to Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Rich Kleiman here. I want to get my client Kevin Durant somewhere before the draft. This whole Giannis thing, he's been hemming and hawing. He's supposed to have this meeting with the Bucks that apparently has never occurred because he was overseas, and it seems you could have Kevin Durant right now, go win a championship right now. I think interested teams, you should be focusing on Kevin Durant, not on Giannis Antetokounmpo right now. The Bucks keep saying he's not available, and I'm willing to work with any interested teams to get me there. Miami, San Antonio, Houston, like maybe you guys should make some offers to Phoenix, again, let's maybe you could take Phoenix's temperature, those three teams, and then we can kind of see where things stand to begin with, and I could try to manipulate things for you.
And Suns here, if those teams don't come with strong enough offers, we are absolutely willing to trade Kevin Durant somewhere else if the offer is better for us. If hopefully these oars pull the same direction, but if they don't, then we will do what's right for us.
And of course, to break the fourth wall, this is all interconnected because as the Spurs and Rockets, my front offices are closely monitoring the Giannis situation and making our offers for KD accordingly. Should we get into
it? Suns, yeah. Who? Why don't you see what's out there for me, and then we're gonna work together, right, Suns? You may have culped about trying to trade me behind my back, especially to the hated Warriors. Obviously, Matt Ishbia assumes that anybody would want to play with Michigan State alum Draymond Green, but perhaps he might have been a little ignorant of the history. He's been acting like he was born yesterday since he bought the team, so I can understand if he wasn't around following the NBA in 2018 when I had that blow up. But that's all right. You're gonna do right by me this time, Suns. I'm waiting to hear what's gonna happen.
Well, and so Suns here, we will listen to offers for anybody, but if the offers are in the same vicinity, we will definitely take your preferences into account. And we know the other teams will too, because if you're excited about going there, then they should be willing to offer. So let's take it. We'll hear offers from anyone and everyone.
All right, Spurs here. We're looking at building a package around Harrison Barnes, Keldon Johnson, and Jeremy Sohan, and then we're going to offer the number 14 pick in this year's draft. So you get a lottery pick, plus Jeremy Sohan, who was a lottery pick recently, another young player in his prime on a reasonable contract, and Keldon Johnson. So we think that's a pretty strong offer right now, given your situation and how little leverage you have, Phoenix.
I don't want to get into some of the better things. It appears that number 2 is going to be off the table, but are you, if it comes to that, if the other offers come in as strong as we hope they do, are you willing to include one of your other first-round pick assets to go to make this deal actually happen?
We'll consider it, but we want to hear what those other offers are first.
Okay.
So repeat that offer then from San Antonio.
Harrison Barnes, Keldon Johnson, Jeremy Sohan, and the number 14 pick in this year's draft. Rockets here. We also have a lottery pick in this year's draft we're willing to make available. It coincidentally turns out to be yours. We're willing to offer you the number 10 pick, Jalen Green, Jabari Smith Jr., Jock Landale, and Nate Williams, whatever portion of Nate Williams' contract we'd have to guarantee to make this math work, for Durant in the 29th pick that you have in this year's draft.
And just as a point of clarity, as we're working through this, would you have other assets too? Would you be like, is this like your final offer, or is there theoretically some wiggle in case we need to bump it a little bit?
I think it's pretty close to our final offer. We definitely are, interested. We're interested in Kevin Durant, but we're also monitoring the Giannis situation and feeling that one out. When we have some concerns about how Durant fits into our future salary structure.
How about the Heat?
Anyone else?
Yeah, Heat. Yeah.
Yes. So we are also interested in Kevin Durant, and our package would be centered around Andrew Wiggins. We'd probably send out Duncan Robinson somewhere else. We'd need to retain a little bit of draft equity to do that. Hello, Brooklyn. And then we'd be willing to put in some combination of Nikola Jovic, Jaime Jaquez Jr., a first-round pick, maybe 2, depending on which of those players. For matching salary, maybe somebody like Kyle Anderson. I don't know if he interests you or not. If there's a depth piece we can put in there to help you rebuild depth beyond those young players. So for picks, we have the number 20 pick this year. We could do a future first rounder or 2. That would be the basis of our offer. Just kind of depends on what interests you.
So Heat, I think your offer is a little bit weaker than the others. If you put Khalil Ware in, you are definitely the leader right now. If you're
Khalil
willing
Ware,
to
not available.
Not available. Okay. And then Rockets, do you mind repeating your offer one more time?
Yeah. So it's Jalen Green, Jabari Smith Jr., Jock Landale, and Nate Williams, plus the number 10 pick for Durant and number 29.
Okay, I will tell everyone right now that the Rockets are the leader right now.
Rich Kleiman here. It seems like a lot to give up, Rockets. Maybe we should work together to kind of like lower my value a little bit. But certainly, I would never go to Minnesota. That certainly wouldn't consider that. I don't know. So Minnesota, you better not make an offer to the Suns. But let me tell you kind of what my strategy is here. So. Earmuff Suns. I'm going to tell the Suns and everybody else that I require a $60 million a year extension over 2 years. I want to lower my trade value because I want as much to still be there when I get there as possible. And I am absolutely willing to work with teams in my 3 favored destinations to take less than what that $60 million. We can kind of talk about that when the time comes. See, I worked with the Warriors once. I worked with the Warriors once in that regard. So I mean, obviously, it's not going to be less than like $40 million a year, but it doesn't have to be 60 if you can come up with a reason of why, what I'm sacrificing for in my age 38 and 39 seasons. But for right now, I want to lower my trade value, and publicly, I'm going to say I got to get the 60, but once I get there, we can kind of work on that a little bit.
Heat here. We would like to structure that as not an extension, and let's go into 2026 free agency. Let's get a second star to go with you, and we can talk about it then what the price would be, and we are willing to offer you the equivalent of that 2-year extension if it doesn't work out. If we can't land another star, that would be our fallback plan, is just to pay you that, but we'd have to take it into
Well,
2026.
we talking the 2-year extension for 60 million or the 2-year extension for 40 million?
No, for 60. We're saying that our plan A, get you, and then have you as an expiring contract, and we'll just see what's available, what we can do, how much of a discount you'd have to take. We'll work together. We know you're fond of our organization. We know what you want at this stage of your career. And so we'll figure that out in 2026. But if we can't, if it falls through, as long as you want to come back, hey, we can, we'll honor that 60 million if we're not adding a star.
Well, I'm not willing to just straight up wait because, I have some injuries in my past. Not that this would ever happen, but on occasion I've gone places and it hasn't quite worked out the way everyone thought. So no, I would need to at least secure myself that $80 million guaranteed shortly after the trade. That's obviously legal. But it doesn't have to be 60 if you can convince me that there's a reason that there's something going on, and we could wait until the start of the season to do the extension possibly. But no, I got it at the start of the season. I need to have at least 80 million guaranteed in an extension. But
Rockets and Spurs have no issue with signing that extension now.
Okay. Are we going to hear anything from the Wolves? We didn't hear anything from the Wolves?
Yeah, Suns here. Any offers outside of those three? Could be Minnesota, could be somewhere else.
Timberwolves here. We'd like to speak to Rich Kleiman. Is Kevin Durant interested in coming? If he is, we've got a good offer for Phoenix. We'd like to bring him on. But if he's not interested, we're not going to trade for him and risk him being unhappy. I'd love to sell you on our plan if it's possible, but if he doesn't want to come, he doesn't want to come, and we accept that.
No, we'll listen to it. We'll listen to it.
So look, we made the Western Conference Finals. We could use a player like Kevin Durant, a chance to play with Anthony Edwards, one of the bright young up-and-coming players in the league. Obviously, KD recognizes, what type of hooper Anthony Edwards is. And, Julius Randle, he wants to get paid. I think there's some constructions there that could work. And so we wouldn't have to give up too much. I hope Julius Randle's not listening. No offense to him, but he's a good player, but he's not indispensable. So we can keep the core of this team. We would try and do it keeping Rudy Gobert, but we're in for the present. We think this is our moment while Rudy Gobert is still in his prime. And so, yes, there might be opportunities later with Anthony Edwards. We'll get to those when we get to those. But right now, we want to seize this window, and we think you're the player to do it.
You give me that full 60 million extension?
Yes.
Okay. What's our team look like then? So you're going to give up Randall and DiVincenzo? Is that the idea?
Yeah, and probably Dillingham.
Okay.
Suns here.
I mean,
nice.
I don't think that affects things too badly, but you might. I'm not totally averse to that, but I think I would rather go to. I would say Minnesota. You could make your offer. I still would probably rather be in these other places. The money helps a little bit. Maybe I can help pay my higher heating bill in Minnesota. So I'm willing to consider it. I'm not going to rule it out totally. The fact that you're willing to pay me is interesting, but I still would probably rather be in one of my preferred destinations. But it's not the fact that you're willing to pay me, and we haven't heard any of these other teams in the destinations that I want to go say they're going to pay me my full 60 million per year. So that could put you over the top of it. So I'd say proceed, talk to Julius Randle, make your offer to Phoenix, and we'll see where it goes.
All right. Well, we are full steam ahead at that point. If that's the response, we just didn't want you to not want to be here. I don't care whether you'd slightly prefer another place.
Suns here. Of course, Julius Randle is a centerpiece of this. What we don't need to get into the nitty gritty of this contract, but what is the general vicinity that it would take for this? Because that contract is now the big delineation between the Wolves offer and the Rockets offer. By the way, the Spurs right now, you're a distant third.
So you want to talk to Julius Randle's agent here?
Yes.
Well, I got 32 million that I would opt into. I think the math is too difficult for a sign and trade. So basically, you're then extending me off of that in conjunction with the trade. So you're limited to 120% of that, and then 3 years on top of this last year. So it basically would take that maximum extension to get it done, Suns.
Okay. And would you be willing to opt in to, because you are a veto player in this, opt in to facilitate this trade, and then because you are extendable throughout the season, to theoretically to do that later? Or is it we need to have this done right now?
It's got to be part of the trade. That's why we're saying it would take 120% and then 3 new years. That's so 120% of 32 million. So starting at that salary, and then the maximum raises off of that.
But you would
Suns
do that.
Prefer the extension now, right? Breaking the fourth wall for a second, because you don't want to pay him more later.
Well, I'm thinking about the possibility of just letting him walk and saving the money if the season doesn't go well. That's the idea is that you could avoid the commitment potentially.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to not opt in.
Exactly. And that's why I wanted to work through the mechanics of this. So as a point of clarity, Wolves here, your offer is Randle, if we agree to this, DiVincenzo, and Dillingham.
Yeah.
So for me, Suns here, Spurs, your offer, like, that gives us a young player that we gave up some real assets. Because you traded Minnesota the pick that became Dillingham. We also get DiVincenzo, who's a reasonable contract, and then Randle. We're working through how we feel about that. And then Rockets, the challenge with your offer is that Jalen Green is like, those are good players, but they're a little bit. I mean, Jabari's interesting, but he's going to be on a new deal very soon. Is that Jalen Green is very duplicative of the guys that we have. We have Beal and Booker. By the way, Bradley Beal, you don't want to go anywhere else. We could talk, but I'm assuming the answer there is no. So I will tell you right now, the Wolves is, even with my discomfort with Randle, that's probably the best offer that's on the table. So you can either sweeten this potentially a little bit, or if you want to try to find a place for Jalen Green to go that maybe gets us something a little bit better. But we're in the vicinity here, so these two offers are very close for us.
So San Antonio would be willing to add our 2029 first round pick to this deal. Does that change our positioning at all?
Is that your own pick unprotected? What is our
own pick unprotected? Yes. Okay.
I don't think that's enough to purchase the app, because we're trying to get guys who can help us. And, it's so funny because I like Devin Vassell, but Devin Vassell it's the same problem with Jalen Green, doesn't facilitate. So Keldon and Harrison Barnes, they're useful players, but they don't really change things for us. And Keldon is paid beyond this year. So, so I don't think that bridges the gap. So I think this is between the Minnesota offer and the Houston offer.
Timberwolves here. I guess we were under the impression it would be an opt-out and sign-and trade. Why do you say that would be harder to make the money work? Because then we could set Randle's. Although maybe I guess it would still work this way, and then we would just have, we're close to the second apron and we're aggregating, but we can figure that out. That's pretty minor.
Well, so you were thinking that it would just be Randle, so that you wouldn't be aggregating.
No,
you wouldn't get hard cap. That's the idea.
No. Also with DiVincenzo and Dillingham, I guess we're aggregating either way.
You are
right, exactly. Yeah.
I
don't see any way for the Wolves to not get hard capped at the second apron in this deal.
Yeah,
and the harder thing might be to avoid getting hard capped first apron, because there probably would need to be a third team involved, which I think we could probably figure out to make that math work.
Yes,
it has to be one of those ones where both teams are taking back less than they're sending out to avoid a first apron hard cap. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, we can cross that bridge when we come to it. There are always facilitators available these days, as we saw at the trade deadline.
Yeah. So I mean, as the Suns here, and I'll briefly break the fourth wall here. I think that the offers are relatively similar value propositions, but I think that the Wolves offer is more aligned with what the Suns would be looking for in terms of building a competitive team, because Randle fills a bigger gap than Jalen Green does. So, as things stand right now, I'm taking the Minnesota offer.
Yeah, I mean, are there Jalen Green teams out there? We were sort of viewing that as your problem to solve, Phoenix. I gotta be honest. Is that the winds rustling sound effect?
Yeah, as far as being willing to give up something for Jalen Green, it doesn't seem too likely. at this
Yeah,
point.
none of my
he had
teams
that
are
one
great
30-point
fits.
playoff game. And then he had those 6 30-point playoff games. Well, or 30 points in 6 playoff games. I can't remember which one of those it was, but it's
Yeah, none of my teams are great Jalen Green destinations. I could theoretically work on a Bulls scenario, but I think I'll take Minnesota's offer.
all right. And so what is the math on that Randle extension?
So it's starting at a 20% raise off his 2025-26 player option.
Yes.
So that would be a starting salary of $35.4 million and 3 years, 114.5 total is what I get.
So you have his option salary at 30 million.
That's the base. That's not counting the incentives.
The incentives, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, which would start at about 1.7 million, I think.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. No, I think for Julius Randle, would kind of like to remain in Minnesota, but I think there's also a feeling that he is going to get paid more by the Suns. That's why Jimmy Butler wanted to get to Phoenix, right? So he could get his maximum extension. So as long as I'm getting the max extension, as long as my agent gets to text out to the newsbreakers that I've gotten a maximum extension, that's all I care about. Wow. All right. So Kevin Durant is going to be a wolf, and yeah, we can get the ink dry on that. That's 2-year, $120 million extension to Wolves, because it didn't. I have a question as KD. We didn't. Houston, San Antonio, Miami. Would you guys have been willing to pay me $60 million a year for 2 years?
You know, San Antonio is the only team I really got very far on this with. I actually didn't expect that Houston offer to be quite as popular as it was, but San Antonio was thinking like 2 years, 110 with the player option was going to be our offer. Like a 1+1, 110 was going to be our offer to you.
Yeah, I mean that would have been nice, but it sounds like you just weren't able to get in the ballpark with your offer.
Well, I mean, you know, that is again the situation where do we want to make this trade and take ourselves out of the running potentially for Giannis down the road? Probably not. Like only if it's perfectly on our terms do we want to make this trade.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this is realistic because, and it's always the one that made the most sense to me, just because the Suns like want a all-star level of player, quote unquote, and Randle did play at an all-star level in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, and so like that's what the Suns, they want to continue to delude themselves into competing. So I think that's. Julius Randle is probably the best player that they're going to get back in this deal, and that's what they're going to be looking for.
I do think, to me, the least realistic part of that was I thought the Rockets' offer was strong, and
Stronger than would actually happen in real life, I would say.
So
right.
part of
And
the issue is that the Rockets don't have like a lot of bad salary to send to the trade.
No.
Like Jabari kind of had to be part of it because you can't pay him. I mean, I guess once Durant was willing to take $40 million. It changed the equation a little bit, but paying him and Jabari in 25 and 26, 27 is pretty tough to do. I mean, I guess at that point you could have like included picked up Aaron Holiday's team option and cobbled maybe enough together.
Could have traded Steven Adams.
Dylan Brooks.
Steven Adams not trade eligible.
Well,
I think he is.
No, the declines are too large. It's above 5% decline.
Yes.
Oh, that's good. That's the stuff that people are here for on the mock-off season, Dan. This is it. This is it right here.
What Houston could have done was just not include the 10 pick, right? If you want to reduce the offer. So maybe we ended up in a realistic place, which is good because we have several more hours ahead, and it's going to be tough if we start with something unrealistic. But I had a 2-stage on this. So if the Rockets' offer is that good, I don't think Durant is warming up to Minnesota. I believe
that.
I believe the idea is maybe he would go to Minnesota, but he's going to pretend he won't until the other 3 fall through. And I don't think Houston was following through with that offer.
Yeah, that was exactly the way I was intending to play this as Phoenix. Was I was going to be like, these offers all suck, and then Houston's offer was good. And I'm like, ooh, okay.
And Brooks, to me, I mean, I looked at building an offer around Green and Brooks, but then you have no shooting guards. I mean, one of the interesting things about it is like Houston seems very deep. But if they trade, 2 rotation players for Durant, all of a sudden you are relying pretty heavily on Reed Shepherd and Cam Whitmore as part of your rotation next year, which might be perfectly fine, but it is an interesting position for them to be in.
Yeah. Okay, so who is next on our list of potential trade candidates?
Celtics here. I think it's probably our guys. Or do you think Lowry?
Yeah, I wonder what's out there for him.
Yeah, I mean, Jazz here, we mentioned it off the top. Again, if Desmond Bane is getting 4 first-round picks, then we better be getting at least 4 first-round picks or equivalent young talents for Lowry Markkanen, who has been an all-star. So that's how we're approaching things right now. We're not in any hurry to make a move unless it's going to be a really good one for us.
Does anyone even want Lowry Markkanen right now?
I mean, the Spurs, it's the same issue. Do you want to make this trade knowing that Giannis might come available at some point? I don't think you do, because this one probably takes you out of Giannis' deal even more so than a Durant trade would.
Yeah, that's fine. Lowry Markkanen, I signed that renegotiation extension to stay in Utah.
Nets here, before we get to the Celtics players, since it seems plausible we could end up in this conversation as someone to help the Boston save money, we wanted to call up the Philadelphia 76ers. We're very interested in the number 3 pick in this year's draft, and we are willing to take Paul George's entire contract off your hands to make that happen. So what's your temperature on that?
So basically your idea is we give up the 3rd pick in the draft to just to offload Paul George?
I mean, that's the starting point of our conversation.
So it's definitely an interesting offer, not something that we had thought about potentially. But my concern for this as interim Daryl Morey is that it doesn't actually, so it saves us a lot of money, obviously, but it doesn't really give us that much latitude for this season. It makes us cheaper, but it's not like, oh, now all of a sudden we can go after max player X. And for some reason, I think James Harden wouldn't be super interested, even if they were. So
I'm definitely thinking of it more in terms of like $52 million trade exception. You can sort of reorient your roster in any way you want with this. In fact, you probably could then have conversations with Boston about some of their guys to save them an enormous amount. You'd sort of take our place in that conversation.
It's an interesting idea, and we of course have had Drew Holiday before.
And we're willing in this case to make it a swap from 3 to 8. For us to go from 8 to 3, but in that case, here's what we're going to need is you to take the top 8 protection off of your pick in 2028 that's coming to us from the James Harden trade.
Okay, so the top 8 protection in 2028. I'll tell you that we're more interested in that structure because the 3rd pick, I mean, that's pretty juicy. Right. Okay. So you have that.
Look, we're not unrealistic here.
Let's see. I'm just taking.
I mean, Brooklyn and Philly have such a great history of working together.
I mean, think about it. Ace Bailey could still be out there at 8.
Maybe this is what he wanted the whole time.
Philly, you could pass on him at 3 or 8. What are you going to choose?
Okay, so the pick that we owe you, so it's top 8 protected for 2 separate years, and then it would become.
So I think that hasn't updated because obviously the pick going to Oklahoma City is not coming in 2025. It can't be until 2026 at the earliest. So now we only have a 1 year.
1 year.
Yeah, it's 2028. Yeah, so that actually is worth something because it'll just disappear if it falls into the protection that year.
Right, and that is a year that things could be exactly. That's what's giving me some pause here. What if we? I'm trying to think about, is there another asset that could bridge that gap? Because that is a very potentially valuable thing for us. If only
Let's give you another idea on that.
Okay.
Then. Instead of entirely removing the top 8 protection, we just say if for some reason the pick is in the top 8, you give us the lesser of your pick, and then you have the Clippers pick that year.
Okay, so if we retain, so basically what we're giving you is the lesser of those 2 picks.
Correct.
Okay,
but that way we're guaranteed.
You're guaranteed a pick. So we get so just to clarify this, so it's Paul George and the 3rd pick and this other asset that we're talking about for number 8.
Yep.
Damn, that's interesting.
That's what I was hoping.
Oh man.
To break the fourth
Wow.
wall, Danny and I traded the Nets. Danny originally had the Nets, and I traded for them because I came up with this plan.
So here's the thing. I think as the Sixers, if this deal was on the table, I think it would be wise for them to take it. Where I'm running into a conflict, and this is just as somebody who was just the Suns, is would Daryl Morey actually do this? Because you do get this trade exception, but it expires in a year. So you have a it's tricky to use, but you do get a full year to use it. You get functionally 2 off seasons if you think of it right. And you save a ton of money, which of course ownership would love and everything else. And
it's basically just a mulligan on the.
And it gives you a hedge. It gives you a hedge. So screw it. I'm going to do it.
Yeah, let's go.
Wow.
Okay, so I want to throw it to the peanut gallery here. I deliberately answered it before I threw it to you guys. Yeah. Let's ignore the realistic part of this. If you were in my shoes, would you have done it?
I mean, a lot of it depends on just what my board is between 3 and 8. And that's actually, all right. I'm probably higher on Ace Bailey than the Sixers are right now. I mean, I guess my thought would be if we're doing this at mid-season or so, obviously you can't with the cap space. Like, if Joel Embiid had showed me that he's ready to still be a really high-level player, then this makes a lot more sense. Where right now, I'm kind of treating the present as just pretty ephemeral, frankly. And I wouldn't want to do anything that would hurt my long-term ability whatsoever. I'm not going to try to trade for Derek White or Jaylen Brown or something when my operating assumption is Joel Embiid's just going to break down. So if you had Joel had played well last year and was ready to go, George was bad, then I think it makes all the sense in the world. But if as Philly, my operating assumption until it's proven otherwise is I'm just preparing for the next era of Sixers basketball, and we'll just try to be reasonably competitive, but I'm not going to give up any future assets right now.
See, I come to the same conclusion almost for the opposite reason. If I'm Philly, I'm saying, well, I hope Joel Embiid gets healthy. I hope Paul George turns it around. I doubt it, but I think hoping for that is better than just looking to the future. So I'd wait this out, keep those picks for use for upgrading. If I guess it works both ways, right? You can use those picks to upgrade if things work out with those stars, or if not, then yes, looking for the long term. As far as this draft specifically, I see a pretty big drop off after my top 5 in the draft. However, a couple of the guys I have in the top 5 could be there at 8. Ace Bailey could be there. Con Knipple could be there. So that's a little tougher to read.
I think it would actually be more attractive if I thought that Knipple was likely to be there at 8. It seems like he's moved up a tad bit. The other thing I didn't have to leverage here was that would also be a fascinating part if this were at all realistic is I was planning to threaten the Quentin Grimes offer sheet as part of this. I was all prepared for that.
I love how there's a CBA rule that teams cannot say we'll match any offer. But I don't think there's the corollary where another team can't say, if you don't make this trade, we're going to make an offer.
Because obviously we've now taken ourselves out of that kind of cap space. So.
Yeah, and for Brooklyn, can you get something for Paul George coming or going?
That's
coming and going.
Logic here, especially.
Yeah, but I mean, there would have to be something atrocious coming back, though, right? That's
well, if Bradley Beal
because his deal goes on so long. Right.
That's the reason I did it. It was it was on the idea of this could just go south. It could go south quickly, and if it does, then you're just epically screwed. And now the Sixers could actually pivot relatively quickly if they needed to. I mean, Embiid is Embiid, but Maxey, they could do something.
Yeah, Embiid is Embiid. Right? I mean, that's the sort of thing. I'm well, hey, we have one horrible contract in Embiid already, at least as it stands right now. So what use is it getting off another? We still have this massive albatross, and we're not going to win in the next few years anyway, unless he comes through. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not even sure there's that much else out there. I mean, I guess you can make a trade now with that trade exception. They still do have some assets, but they're not it's not coming out their ears.
They could also use the non-tax mid-level now. It does. It opens up a few different paths to use a favorite Daryl word. There's a lot of optionality, and from Brooklyn's standpoint, part of my thinking was, yeah, sure, there's a bunch of cap space that we're erasing in future years, but is the Nets, I think we're more likely to get our next star via trade than via free agency.
All right, well, Celtics, this might have changed the landscape a little bit for you guys. Changed the landscape for a lot of these teams that need to dump money. So I guess it now has come to the Celtics. Philly could be a player. What's out there for Boston's guys? But maybe you could take us through your finances a little bit and how much money you're trying to dump Boston.
We can. So our basic goal is to get under the second apron. That's $21 million. If we could get all the way out of the tax without completely destroying our viability for when Tatum returns, that would be great. But the second apron is the real line. So that's $21 million in savings, especially now with Brooklyn doing this. It's going to be a lot harder for us to do that in like one transaction unless Philly wants to take on Jrue Holiday. But that's why we kind of want to listen on everybody. And so I will tell you our preference would be to move Holiday as the principal way to shed some of this money. However, if a team comes with a strong Jaylen Brown offer, we are willing to listen, and that would be a potential path. So that's why, especially with those two guys, we'd like to listen. Porzingis is a little trickier due to his extension possibilities, but Jrue and Jaylen Brown, we know what they are, and so we're most interested, and Derek White too, like all three of those guys.
All right, well, who's out there who wants to make an offer for the Celtics guys, or Celtics? Did you have an offer that you wanted to make? Let's get this ball rolling here.
Well, I guess the first thing that I want to do is, as the Celtics, is take the temperature of the Rockets with Jaylen Brown. Like Rockets and Spurs, either one of you guys, are you interested? How interested are you in a Jaylen Brown deal? Because we're not going to do it unless we're getting a real return.
Yeah, I mean, I think there'd maybe be some interest if we were getting a screaming bargain here, but same position as with Durant, that we're sort of saving a lot of our chips for whatever happens with Giannis.
Okay, that's reasonable. I mean, the idea for me with Jaylen Brown is basically like, we'll do it if someone comes. So if somebody comes out of the woodwork, like, I mean, it doesn't have to be this sort of thing, but like, Mikal Bridges went for 5 first-round picks. Like we're talking that sort of thing, but we could also get players that help. It doesn't have to be future draft assets. It could be that equivalent of value. But let's get to Holiday. Are there any teams that are interested in him? Of course, if you're interested at seeing him as neutral value or positive value, like we can hammer something out. But if there are teams that are even interested in taking him on for a single, not great first round pick, like we can talk right now, we can get this deal done fast.
I honestly don't hate him at his number,
right?
But it's just hard to find the matching salary, or there's one team with space and the matching salary where there'd be something that makes sense for Boston and bring it down with enough wiggle room with trade matching. I just don't see anything obvious with my teams.
And the one tough thing about this trade that just happened is Philly is an interesting fit, but also very guard heavy at the moment.
Right. And I thought about it as though, like in the 5 minutes that I've been processing the deal that we just agreed to. And Jrue, it's such a weird situation because I think he actually fits reasonably well with either McCain or Maxey. But are you willing to commit that much in finances and everything else to that sort of a group? And again, unlike it's like you just got off of Paul George's money, you're about to add somebody who's making a lot less, but on a relatively similar term.
San Antonio is another team in a similar situation where a player like Jrue Holiday would be a very good fit there, but Jrue Holiday himself, with all the guards they have, is probably a little too small for what they need.
Mavericks, what are you feeling about?
That's exactly who I was going with. So yeah, we would be interested. Something with Klay Thompson, PJ Washington. We're guessing that's not, especially Klay Thompson, what you're looking for. So we'd have to reroute him to, I guess now Philly. I don't know where Philly stands on it.
What about Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington?
Yeah, I think that's just too much to give up.
What if we put something like one of our like late first round picks on the table?
Yeah, a late first probably isn't good enough. It's hard for me to see something unless you're like getting real aggressive with including picks that doesn't include Klay, because with Kyrie Irving hurt, I just feel like, hey, it's not really working out with what we intended for Klay. We need another backcourt creator. And so using that salary slot and then one of the front court guys, unless there's something that I don't think is realistic in terms of you including multiple picks.
So as a point of clarification, your offer is something like Klay Thompson, and is it Klay and PJ?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Kyrie Irving's agent here, Shatelia Riley Irving, Dallas, so you got to be able to take on money in Drew Holiday and still pay me my contract?
Yeah, I mean, so that's almost salary neutral. It's just a couple million more there. We would assume Clay's getting rerouted
but
somewhere else.
doesn't Boston? Yeah, Boston needs to get some savings out of this, right? So,
right,
we're
we're
assuming
assuming
now to take Klay Thompson.
Yeah, but maybe somebody just wants to take Clay after all the strikeouts on Drew.
I mean, there's only one team that could do it right now. That's Philly.
Right, and so that would be the question: does Philly? Clay makes just over the or enough over the MLE. What about is PJ Washington under the MLE?
He is not. Gafford. Let's see. PJ Washington actually declines.
He declines. That's why I was wondering.
I think he. It's right
no,
there.
He's 48,000 more.
Yeah, no, that's it's not going to work. But I mean, now,
but that's Boston's problem more than.
Well, while we're on this conversation, Dallas, do you have interest in DeMar DeRozan from Sacramento? Because we're very interested in PJ Washington.
Well, here as Celtics here, we're potential. Oh, but we don't want DeRozan. I was going to say we could potentially move PJ.
I mean, we could take. Well, we probably rather have. Well, yes, we have interest in both Drew and DeRozan.
I just want to make sure you're aware of that. We're willing to do a similar framework to what you're talking about with Boston,
where you'd saying something like Clay and PJ for DeRozan,
and our willingness to perhaps incentivize that a little bit.
The appeal of Holiday is that he can do some as a creator and then slide into more of an off-ball role when Kyrie gets healthy. Where DeRozan, I've got less confidence in his fit once Kyrie gets healthy. Probably a better overall player at this point, though. I guess.
Yeah. And he also has $10 million guaranteed for next year instead of 2 more years at over $30 million.
There is that, but that's also somebody else's problem. That's past our window.
I mean, defense wins championships, Nico.
Right?
I mean, I think
all in on maximizing Cooper Flagg's rookie year.
So Mavericks here, or Celtics here, talking to Mavericks. That is Clay and PJ Washington is a framework that I think makes some sense for us. We'd like to listen potentially on Derek White, but we think that even though that move doesn't save us enough money, that we can use that move to eventually save us enough money. So we think that could be a good foundational piece, unless somebody blows us away with Derek White, but it doesn't sound like there's a ton that's out there like San Antonio. It's a lot of the same people that were reluctant with Jalen. So if somebody has a really strong Derek White offer, now is the time to do it. Otherwise we'll take this deal.
Grizzlies here.
Ooh.
Derek White isn't necessarily, we would kind of like to reorient and get a little bit bigger on the wing after the Desmond Bane trade, but we would be willing to offer KCP plus the number 16 pick for Derek White.
That is not nearly enough.
What if we include one of the Orlando picks that we got in that deal?
The Suns.
No, one of the Orlando that we got in that deal.
No, that's not enough either.
Okay.
Well, so maybe Boston, it might be useful for you to just throw out there a general idea of what you'd be looking for Derek White and Jaylen Brown, and then we can have an understanding of whether it might be worth it to go down those roads.
It makes sense. So for Derek White, let's say of value. It's at 2 first-round picks, at least one of which is like lottery / top 10. So like something with some real upside. This is not 2 of our picks or something else like that. And, matching salary. We love to save money in the deal, but if there needs to be salary coming back that isn't horrible, we understand. And for Jalen, I mean, it's more about the quality. But so I'd say at least 2 high quality things and then probably 2 low quality things. That's about where we're looking.
I mean, Golden State wouldn't be interested in Derek White at that price. You would imagine they would be, right? I mean, I think there'd be a lot of teams if that's the price it would be.
Well, I'm looking for more. I mean, that's that's to get in there. The Warriors. Yeah.
Well,
So for the Warriors, matching salary isn't. I'm the Warriors. Matching salary isn't the easiest, though. Derek White making less money than some of these dudes is more basic. He's 28 million next year. But my question, like, because with the Warriors, is that I don't think they have anything that counts. Like, I guess if you go unprotected super deep, then that probably counts as a premium asset. So if you go unprotected, like 2029 or beyond. What about other teams? Just because that's self-dealing. Anybody else that have an offer in the vicinity?
And the Nuggets would probably want to get in on that, wouldn't they?
I mean, we're mostly thinking about the Cam Johnson potential. I mean, we're trying to save money in a deal, not save Boston money.
Yeah. LA Lakers?
I was just going to say, Lakers would have some interest with, I don't know how we get there necessarily in value because we have higher priorities. And so we like Austin Reeves, but he's probably our ticket for a center. If we did something with Rui and, one of Maxi Kleba, Gabe Vincent, Jared Vanderbilt, that's not the salary savings, but it's a smaller contract. Again, we'd have to flip to Philadelphia now. One or both of the guys coming to you. And then how would we get there in value? But we would definitely be open to it. I don't know if, swaps would be enough or what. We owe a top 4 protected 2027 first rounder to Utah and our 2029 first rounder to Dallas. We do have that 2031 pick. We do have swaps in between.
I mean, I feel like the Clippers would be interested in Derek White. Like, there are a lot of teams would be, because he fits on any team. Like, Toronto would probably be interested in Derek White. Like, they're
Clippers run into some matching salary issues.
Yeah.
Well, in the Raptors, it's just like how much does Boston value their guys, because they have first, but it's in terms of matching salary, it's guys that are a little bit loaded because presumably Scotty Barnes isn't going to be a part of this deal.
Yeah, Detroit's probably not looking to accelerate the timeline to that degree.
Indiana, OKC.
The Lakers would definitely be my most interested team if there's a reasonable pick package. It just sounded like, I guess I've gotten some mixed signals from the Celtics on what it'll cost, but yeah, the Lakers would like to have him and have matching salary that works and picks that theoretically work. It's just a matter of that salary is gonna have to get rerouted somewhere.
Yeah, I'm trying to work through, make sure they're none of my teams that are. I mean, the Warriors just don't.
The Lakers probably don't have enough to do it unless they.
Yeah, that was my thought too.
Yeah, unless they include Austin Reeves. The Clippers have.
I mean, Nate, do you want to take the Raptors for a second and see if you can put together an offer? I thought about it for a little while and I just couldn't, especially because the Celtics are trying to save money. Because the Raptors are basically.
Yeah. So White, what does White make this year? He's got a new
28-1.
He makes 28. So basically, what I have to do is I got to give you a bunch of savings. You're probably not that interested in like players, really. So what's the minimum number we got to get to?
Well, that's got to be a 3-team trade because Toronto's at the tax line. Are they going into the tax for this?
Oh my God, everybody is fucking tax line.
Well, for Toronto of all teams to be at the tax line is pretty preposterous.
Maybe
it's pretty preposterous.
The Sixers are geniuses for making this trade. Now they're in the driver's seat.
Oh yeah, okay, it's true. I had thought about Philly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that does that, and they could just take him. I mean that's the big appeal, that they could just take him.
Oof.
With not to send anything back. And so what do you got there? You've got so I mean I think probably what it is you want the number 8 pick, right? That they just got.
So basically, then you're trading Paul George and the 3rd pick for Derek White and that future asset, I guess.
Well, and you also still have a bunch of savings too. You still have another $25 million in savings on top of White, more than that.
Well, yeah, and the Sixers would still be clear. They honestly, depending on the Grimes.
Yeah, they have to bring back Grimes. Yeah, so and that wouldn't be.
I mean, the other thing we mentioned, taking the Brooklyn offer sheet off the table. Well, no one else has more than the non-tax MLE to offer Grimes. The Sixers are in a much more commanding position with his restricted free agency now.
Oh, yes, we are.
So that wouldn't be a crazy return, the number 8 pick for Derek White, especially if you're not sending back any salary. We've seen like the number 8 pick was traded for like Jason Richardson. I mean, I think Derek White's probably better than Jason Richardson was at the time as we look back on it. But in terms of like what the perception was of those two players, at the time, probably pretty similar. There isn't a huge history of late top 10 picks getting traded.
Well, and the other part of the intrigue for me is Philly with Derek White is that you could reflip, he could help. He works kind of on a lot of the different theories of the team in the way that Drew Holiday doesn't, in the way that I would argue Paul George doesn't. And the skill set works everywhere as long as he stays healthy. So if this goes off the rails, and now
yeah, I mean, I don't approve of any of this as Philly because I think their present team is fucked because of Embiid regardless. But if they've already gone down this road, you made this deal to get better now around PG and or not, PG's gone now, so around Embiid and Maxey. White is certainly probably the best player you can get to augment that. And
well, and here's the other thing as I'm thinking about this from Boston's perspective is I'm putting this together in some ways with the Mavericks deal, and potentially there's a way to get out of the tax entirely here without completely.
Yeah. Well, maybe what you say then, Danny, is they got to take Klay Thompson too.
So then that means Philly pretty much can't use the non-taxpayer, but they probably weren't really going to anyway.
Yeah, but that might just not be enough value for
with Grimes.
Right.
I think
you're both
Philly
and Boston, right? So
yes, I am.
All right. I'll take over Philly then.
Okay.
And I'll take over Boston. You can be Philly since you're the one who just made this trade. You know what you were thinking when you made that trade.
Presumably.
Philly, you could ask for the 28 pick from Boston.
Yeah, I think as Boston, we'd be willing to do that. If you're going to insist on Klay, we're giving up White and getting back number 8. Yeah, I think we would want that to just be the deal. Have we made this Drew deal yet or no?
No, we haven't.
No,
I'm thinking of them as potentially not parts of the same whole and as parts of the same whole.
So, I mean, to get totally out of the tax, I'm going to get number 8 and I'm moving, and I've also got PJ Washington in this scenario, right?
Right.
So he would have some value, actually. So he might even be someone we could re-sign going forward. That could be part of our group. So it's basically, I'm going to give up White. You're just going to take him. You're going to take Klay Thompson. I'll give you number 28 as kind of the price for taking Klay Thompson completely off our hands. We're going to get back number 8, and we still have PJ Washington too. So we're moving. We're moving Drew. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, you also need to think about Dallas was getting a pick in this too.
Oh, were they?
You didn't. No, you didn't. You didn't say you were getting a pick.
Yeah, because Sacramento also said they would offer a pick for a DeRozan construction like that.
That if it's a late first, it doesn't mess with this construction too much. It could be 20 as long as you're willing to accept like 28 this year or something like that.
Yeah, here I can just take over Boston for this. Actually, you if you want to stay Philly, Danny.
Okay.
Well, so what's the issue there? The issue is you want to trade PJ Washington to Sacramento for DeRozan, but you're also interested in Holiday, right?
It's basically one or the other. And so
so you could if you could give us back like Caleb Martin and Najee Marshall instead, if you want to do that rather than PJ Washington.
It'd be a similar issue where these are players that we're not just looking to get rid of. Klay Thompson is the one we're looking to.
Right, so Clay's in the deal.
Right.
So instead of PJ Washington, it's going to be Klay. I mean, Klay is negative value in this. So like you're paying
so is Drew, and Drew makes a lot more money.
Is he?
Well, look at the marketplace, and so we're looking at it as, hey, we're number one, we're helping you reduce salary from Drew to Klay, and then number 2, we're giving up PJ Washington or Najee Marshall and and Caleb Martin. Either one of those, we assign positive value to that aspect of the trade. So we're going from negative to worse negative, and also giving up positive. Yeah, we're expecting a pick back, and the Kings seem ready to do that in a similar construction. Maybe for a player we don't want quite as much.
Well, Kings and Mavs, why don't you guys negotiate what you're going to negotiate first then?
All right, so what we were thinking, we'd rather not give you one of our own first-round picks. If we do, it would have to be pretty heavily projected, but we do have the 2027 San Antonio pick that we could give you in this deal.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's actually pretty good for Dallas.
Well, it depends on which. So, but
to get anything in this swap, because PJ only has one year left on his deal.
Let's see. So
And you already have a bunch of power forwards,
DeRozan makes 25.
I mean, by the way, I have other PJ Washington teams out there, but it just seems Dallas is most interested in getting a creator out of this that those teams can't offer.
Yeah.
Because I mean, breaking the fourth wall. I think PJ Washington, like when you look at the free agency, there are no PJ Washington.
That's
types
why
and
as
a
the
lot of
as the
teams
Celtics, I
need
was
a PJ
interested in
Washington.
PJ was because I thought I could flip him pretty cleanly, even if it's not for a maximum savings, to get something for him.
Yeah, I don't think that pick is quite good enough for us to do that as Dallas. The Spurs should be pretty good, but let's see. What could we do?
I mean, we would prefer, I think, to do our pick that year so that, it like helps us Stepien wise.
Yeah.
But again, we'd want to protect it. Probably. I was going to say top 10, but then I realized that we're the Sacramento Kings, and the odds of picking 11 through 14, as we in fact are the Kings, and traded away a pick in a similar deal, are pretty high.
Yeah, let's make this top 7 protected, then top 11, then 8, then 9, and we'll just stretch it out, and it'll be a little maze we go through for the next half decade. I guess we run into a wall there with let's see. So your 2027 first, do top 8 protected.
I mean, we'd want a lotto protected.
I understand. I'm saying top 8 protected, and we'll do the deal.
And for, like, what does it convert to?
It'll stay top 8 protected for how long can we run this out?
We want to put an end date on that, and we want that end date to be soon.
Well, 2031, you owe a swap to the Spurs. Now, could we do this trade after the draft and do it with 2026 and get an extra year on this?
We proposed 2027 for a reason.
Just breaking the fourth wall here for a second. What's that reason?
Well, just that you
Or the
guaranteed
I mean,
until 2027.
You get to break the fourth wall to find that out.
I said that. I don't think that's any great secret. We're already guaranteed a first-round pick in 2027, so that's we would most like to give it up.
I see.
But we don't want to give up.
I see.
The 9th pick.
Okay, so let's do top 8 in 2027, make it top 6 in 2028, and then it can revert to 2 seconds. Do you have a couple seconds that?
No, we really don't actually. The seconds we
all right, fine. It can just be unprotected in 2028. I mean, they could be distant. They don't have to be seconds in 2028. They could come years.
It'd have to be the 2032 is the only second round pick after that we have.
Ooh, what are you guys doing?
We have a lot of second round picks.
An excellent
now
question,
in
Dan.
2027, but
Yeah,
no
they have
second round picks
punted a lot of
that.
seconds, a lot of seconds over the years, and then they finally got some back in the Fox deal, and then immediately gave them up again.
Man, you guys makes this.
I mean,
tough.
Celtics offer is still on the table.
I feel like we're so close.
All right, refresh my memory here on exactly where you guys are right now.
So right now we're talking about DeRozan for PJ Washington and Klay Thompson, with the Kings sending the Mavericks Sacramento's own 2027 first round pick. My offer was top 8 protected in 2027, top 6 protected in 2026, then reverts to 2 seconds, but that is not possible. I'm sure this is illegal, but we couldn't say, hey, if it doesn't convey in 2027, we get Charlotte's 2027 second rounder. And then if it
I think
does,
actually we can say that, can't we?
and then but it still continues to 2028. And then if it doesn't convey in 2028, then we also get
32 second.
Right. So we boost our chance a little bit at a second there, because we might get the 2027 second rounder and get the first in 2028. I don't know if that's legal. I don't know if we just invented a new thing. I don't know if that's too much value for Sacramento to give up.
Let's make it top 8 protection both years if we're going to do that.
All right, I'll compromise the top 7 both years. It's so tricky arguing with the Kings, because this is exactly where you're going to be. I want a top check.
We're probably going to be 11 through 14. I feel confident with that.
All right, guys, the draft is almost here. We're you got 30 seconds to figure this
I'll
out.
do top 8 and top 7.
Okay, is that I need a ruling from the commissioner. Is this even legal?
I think this is legal.
Okay, it's a little weird.
I don't know. I mean, we can send some
Yeah,
text out.
I
and
think
get
I think
confirmation.
we don't need to have a deal breakdown over 1 second round pick. We got a lot of stuff to get to.
All right, let's do it. So it's going to be the Kings second round or first rounder in 2027, top 8 protected. If that does not convey, then the Mavericks will get Charlotte's 2027 second rounder from Sacramento. Plus, the Mavericks can still get the 2028 top 7 protected Kings first round pick. And if that doesn't convey, then Dallas will get the 2032 Kings second rounder.
This is a very
Wild.
big deal.
Wild.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess actually that probably is illegal, but
I would guess so also.
okay. So that's done. Clay and PJ Washington are on the Kings. DeRozan is on the Mavs. Mavs, you're probably not interested in Drew Holiday at this point. The matching salary is probably not there. I got a proposal as the Boston Celtics. Bucks.
Okay.
You want Drew Holiday back?
I mean, we do. I just don't think. How does the salary work for us?
So
Obviously,
basically,
Kuzma's
I
the
want to
bulk of it.
construct a deal
So you will
that
take
offers us the maximum possible savings this year. So I mean, we might even be willing to do something around Bobby Portis and Pat Connaughton, and then whatever other flotsam you need to throw in to make it legal.
So it presumably would have to be. It could be one of those two guys in Kuzma.
And Kuzma?
Well, the two of those guys together make 22.
Yeah, so we're pretty close then.
For Drew?
Yeah, aren't we?
Yeah, I
Don't
guess
we have
so.
to just
Yeah,
get
I
the
guess that's
80% of that?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Because
Because you'll be hard capped at the first apron at that point. So I guess there's a concern of the money working there.
yeah, I mean, it limits our ability to use the mid-level, certainly. But if we're turning Portis and Connaughton into guys who can actually play for us, well, we probably need to re-sign Brook Lopez in that scenario. Then we're interested in this. So I assume.
I mean, the question is whether Portis is going to opt in or not. But actually, he might be interested in re-signing, opting in, and then extending with Boston. That might end up be what has to happen here. But Connaughton surely is opting into his 9.4. Portis seems to think he's going to have a market. That may or may not be true.
I mean, what are you asking for pick-wise in this deal?
I think it depends who's coming back, what happens with Portis. We might be willing to do it for Kuzma. Kuzma, I think, is at a lower. He might actually be able to help us in 27, and as an or be someone we could trade as an expiring contract. So I might actually be more interested in doing it for Kuzma than Portis and Connaughton, if we can get enough savings for this year. Because this White deal, we're going to assume that that's going to happen. Again, now if we could shove, Portis, or if we could shove Connaughton into that deal as well, Sixers, do you feel comfortable with the framework we've agreed on of just taking White plus some other kind of flotsamy salary for 8, and we'll give you 28?
Yeah, if it's as long as we're talking 1 year flotsamy salary that's, let's say, 12 million or less.
Yeah.
Yes,
well, Clay was going to be 2 years at 15 million, but he can play more than some of these other guys. Yeah. So yeah, we're looking at something along the lines of maybe 2 years, not more than 30 million in dead salary. How about that? And not more than 15 in 1 year. Pretty close to that. If needed, we could also throw in a second if you feel like something. It's not, if it's just like beyond the pale for that. But just a general construction, because that's what I'd be looking to do here with Drew is take back way less salary and then maybe even get very close to out of the tax, if not out of the tax entirely.
Yeah, I think we could make that work.
All right, so how much more do we have to throw in if it's Kuzma bucks?
Okay, let me do the math on this. That's 8.5.
We have this deal with the Sixers. We'll take Connaughton back if you can incentivize us a little bit. In addition to Kuzma,
like again, what are we talking here?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess you've got 31 as a pick and 32 and a 32 swap. Yeah, so maybe this is probably getting too complicated. So maybe it's simpler to just make it Kuzma plus, some other smaller salaries to get to the minimum, making the math work. As long as that works for you to take on 10 million extra in salary or so, or whatever it ends up being.
I think we can probably find a way to make it work, especially since we still got that conversation we want to have with Connaughton and Portis if they're not in this deal about because we could do it for Kuzma and one of our minimums is a legal deal. I mean, obviously we'd prefer to get Connaughton, but again, tell me what that's going to take.
So I think we would take Kuzma for Holiday and a 2032 swap.
We would do that if we could swap our second round picks this year. Go from 47.
What are those?
We have 47, you have 32.
32 is pretty good. I mean, I guess we also have 28, but that's good. That might go in the Sixers deal. Actually, I guess we can always buy. Although I guess it depends where we are. We were hoping to get some savings by getting some second round picks. Although I guess we could always trade a future second to get more this year. All right, so this deal would be Kuzma for Holiday
and Chris Livingston.
Who's the minimum? AJ Green, or I guess AJ Green. You need him. So like
Livingston.
Andre Jackson Jr.
Chris Livingston,
fine.
We might need Andre Jackson Jr. too. It is very amusing, by the way, that the Drew idea is basically the same in Milwaukee as it was in Dallas, where he plays point guard. Well, your guy is recovering. Your starting point guard is recovering from a potential season-long injury, and then shit.
That's fantastic.
Well, and like getting him back would kind of mollify Giannis a little bit too. Giannis's agent, I think, would pass that along. So yeah, as long as Giannis is staying, that opens this up. Yeah. So and then we've got a 2032 swap. And then we're also swapping our second round picks 32 to 47 this year.
Correct.
Wait, so I thought it was a 2028 first round pick swap. It's 2032.
2032. Yeah.
That's all Milwaukee can offer.
Okay.
Well, it's not all we can offer, but it is all we are offering.
As a swap, yeah. Unless they wanted to like Horcrux a swap.
Exactly.
By the way, will this be the first time a team has ever pick swapped in two deals for the same player?
Okay, sold. I think that's it. So this is Chris Livingston and Kuzma. Do we have to? How much of Livingston is guaranteed? Could we? Could we only partially guarantee him? What's the exact math on how little we have to guarantee to make it work?
It's about 1.7 million.
Save.
Well, no, because that's actually more expensive than because you have to fill that roster spot. I think that way is more expensive than just paying him and dumping.
Yeah, than just holding on to him. You're probably right.
By the way, the Celtics are incredibly close to the tax now. Like they're within a few million
for getting out. Yeah, no. So we'll now the pressure is off basically for getting out. We'll figure out a way to do that.
As time goes on.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and we haven't even dumped anything to Philly yet.
No. Correct. Nothing has been dumped to Philly yet. So that's the way out entirely.
I mean Philly, do you just want Kyle Kuzma?
Oh.
Here, let's just restate the Milwaukee deal first. So we got this. God, is so complicated. Kuzma, Chris Livingston, and a 2032 swap going from Milwaukee, along with the number 47 pick in this year's draft. And then from Boston, it's Drew Holiday and the number 32 pick in this year's draft. And then we have a provision. So that's done. Provisional deal on the table. Derek White to Philly for the number 8 pick. And then maybe the 28, and Philly is going to take some money from us. I mean, I think like Kuzma Philly does need a player like this. And you are getting the number 28 pick. Although I guess, we don't really have to do that part anymore though, do we? Because part of the appeal was getting some savings. We don't have any other bad contracts. And Philly is a good contract. No, hold on. Yeah, go ahead, Philly.
If Philly, if they get Kuzma, is suddenly pretty close to the tax line before re-signing Quentin Grimes.
Yeah. So maybe, I I'm Philly, and since you're not taking back any more bad money like we talked about initially, could you throw in a little something else to your offer for White?
A little something.
Let me see what you got here. How about?
I mean, we could do. We have the more 27. We have the more favorable of Golden State and Phoenix's second. That could be pretty good.
All right. How about we swap Xavier Tillman for Adem Bona too?
Okay, we could do that.
All right. Wow. So number 8 for 2027 better of Golden State and Phoenix, and Adem Bona for Derek White and Xavier Tillman. Woof! Oh man, that was fun. Peanut Gallery, how you feeling? How did I do as Boston?
My head's still spinning. I mean, I do think that Derek White for the 8 is a reasonable construction. Philly is just very guard heavy at this point, but they are a lot of good guards. So
Yeah. Now, nice. I mean, they could also now move Jared McCain too. I mean,
right.
If they wanted to try to get, I mean, you need another wing guy. Yeah. I mean, I'm sort of like not loving it from Philly's perspective. I don't know. I've said that already, so I'll stop talking about that. Dan, what do you think of all this just from Boston's standpoint?
Yeah, I have a better chance of getting my head around that than Philly's back and forth. Yeah, for Boston, I think it makes sense to get the upside of that 2032 first round swap.
I thought that deal was awesome, actually, for Boston. That's why I made it, obviously.
Yeah, Nate, you actually controlled a team for a little bit.
I mean, you are.
I know. I was excited.
You're getting considerable positive value for Drew Holiday, who I think we agreed would probably take if you're just dumping him into cap space back when that possibility existed, like Boston is the team that's having to give up a little something to do that, right?
Yeah, I mean, Kuzma's value is at a pretty low point.
Is that in the moment?
Yeah, I like that one. The Derek White for number 8, just the way I see this draft, is a little light for me. Now, if Ace Bailey slips to 8, sure, that looks a lot better. But based on the players I would be picking, I see a pretty big drop into that range.
Well, so that's what Omar Cooper's been doing, Dan. Omar Cooper knows that Paul George is going to get traded to Brooklyn. Brooklyn will trade the number 8 pick to Philly, and Philly will trade the number 8 to Boston, and that's where Omar Cooper is trying to get him. That's what he's been working on. That's why he hasn't actually been licensed yet by the NBA. He's had to focus on some of these scenarios instead.
And I guess with Jason Tatum out, he does get a lot of shots next year, maybe. Although Kuzma will have something to say.
Yeah, he gets to play on Wizards North next year.
Oh baby. Okay. So Boston is taking care of their stuff. And actually, I mean, they might even be able to do something with Al Horford or Luke Cornett now. That could send them back into the tax, but again, they might be able to work around that.
Does Al Horford have a say in that?
I mean, he certainly will. We that will come up. Danny will retake over the Celtics now that the self-dealing has been taken care of. What are some other trades here? This has been
the mock trade deadline pod is going super well.